Yeah.
This is it. This is live.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is. Yeah, I like you were withholding the social distance.
I think that's accurate for what it's called.
Yeah, it is called the social distance, and you are.
I'm going to start chopping out every other letter too, so you won't know whether you have hearing issues or.
Oh boy, yeah,
I have speech impediments. So.
Well, I'm here with Jeremiah Landi. He is an entrepreneur. He owns an engineering company. Founded an engineering company called Landi Industries. He's also my husband. How's that going?
All true. I'm the husband or the business, so.
Whichever one.
I'd probably say good.
Solid.
Yeah. Probably better than the early years of Star Trek, I'd like to say.
Why the early years when they got lost, or just the actual show when it was puppets?
No, when there was puppets. I don't know.
So.
When Kirk was sexually harassing everybody. So, yeah, that's. I mean, like, you know, we're doing good.
This got derailed real fast. I regret making this live. He was, I guess. I don't.
Yeah, they made the 52 cards or the 52 women of Kirk that card deck. So, yeah.
My phone's ringing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yep. So I mean, if Chancy's listening, plug for the present mode. If you had that, your phone wouldn't ring. So
I know. Okay, so do you want to explain what the present mode is and why I should have it?
Not really
right now.
Not really, but I will.
It's one of your clients.
I don't like plugging myself, but I will. So I guess it's in it is an app that is made for families. So essentially, the founder of the app, Yessie. He's a man based here in Cleveland. And what he discovered was that a lot of times which is funny because this is, I guess, the opposite of social distancing, is that technology actually made a social distance very early on. There's always these complaints about people being on phones or people not necessarily participating in life or what's going on, or, you know, as he calls the app, being present. He noticed it with a couple family members with their children where they weren't necessarily paying attention to their kids. They were Instagramming or other things. Yeah. And he decided to make an app about it. And so, you know, we've been developing it for him. I use the app a lot, which I like.
Yeah.
Not on iOS, sadly. Apple tends to hate anybody that tells them what to do, which I can relate to, but yeah.
Well, and the thing about the app is that it basically shuts down your phone. So that way you can only, it'll send out emergency text. Like it'll send text.
It's a better D&D the way that I describe it. So what I like about it when I use it, this is definitely turned into a plug, which I'm sure my customers will love. But no, so what it is essentially it's a better D&D. So what it allows you to do is that while you're using your phone, it allows you to distance yourself from your phone. So. You're able to put the phone on there. You're able to get the essential things you need. So any phone calls or kind of emergency messages that way, it blocks text messages. It blocks a lot of other things. And what I like about it is that if somebody really needs me, sends a text message and it says like, hey, call me if this is an emergency. And then it still allows calls through. But at the same time, it kind of gives me that distance I need for my phone. So like I use it when we're with Anna or when I'm with you, I'm able to turn it on and then focus on, in all honesty, this isn't a plug. So it enables me to just focus on what I'm doing. So rather than constantly being worried about emails, small business owner, I get emails or calls all the time.
24/7.
Yeah. And so it's really nice to be able to shut down and focus on something. So I don't get tempted to get in on email. I noticed, especially with Anna, like if we're on phones around her, she tends to want to be on the phone or she tends to want to participate.
She's 2, as I've mentioned before in these things. She's 2 and she always wants the phone. Very, very curious about it. Well, you know, I mean, you started this off with like a little joke of like, well, it's kind of the opposite of social distancing, but actually I think it's more important now than ever before because, I mean, now we're like just on our devices, and I think it's right now is a really good time to sort of slow down, I guess, or refocus is really what I should say, and reprioritize, you know, be more present with your family. If you're lucky enough to be quarantined with your family, if you're not, like, be more present outside or in nature or just whatever you're doing, because I mean, technology, it is an addiction. Phones, they are built so that way you want to be on them. And as we, you know, as we use it more and more throughout the social distancing process, it's a double-edged sword. It's like, I thank God we have it, but also we're going to become kind of more addicted through it because of it.
Yeah, I think I'd describe it loosely as Oxycontin. So yes. I think the problem with technology is that there was never like a game plan laid out. So like Yessie and I have had a lot of conversations around technology and technological use, but I believe it's kind of, at some point we had administrative assistants. So you had somebody that deemed whether you should see something or not.
Right.
And we thought with the advent of technology, you know, I remember my great grandpa used to travel around. He used to go payphone to payphone. So he did construction here in Cleveland, did a lot of it. And he used to travel around, and he used to have to stop at a payphone to check in on his workers. Or he had to rely on an administrative assistant to take down the notes, give him the important stuff as quick as possible, because you constantly are on a go. So with the advent of technology, it's great because you have a lot of cost savings. So you no longer are dealing with paper. You're no longer dealing with all this other, junk. But at the same time, you don't have somebody to stop you and say, hey, look, maybe, this email from Upwork or this email from Facebook isn't the most important thing ever.
Right.
Maybe what you're doing is more important. But I think it makes it very hard with the way that technology is invented now to really dictate dynamically
to really
what's
focus.
important.
I mean, there's been so many times that I've like gone onto my phone to respond to an email, say, and then I'll get a text and I'll look at the text, and then I'll like check Facebook, and then I'll check something else. And then, I'll go like down these rabbit holes, and then like 20, 30 minutes later, I still haven't responded to that email that I originally sent out, or was going to do, or the phone call or whatever, it was that you originally set out to do. It's just sort of a distracting path, which is what the present mode kind of helps you focus, whether it is with family or whether it is actually like focusing on the task that you're trying to accomplish. That's what the app is.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. I'll say this in general, is it's very interesting. So we've been with Yessie working on this app for about a year and a half. And I think it's a very interesting journey that we've all been going down. I know Chansey definitely has some opinions. But what it comes down to is really that taking a step back from technology. When I first did it, I didn't realize how difficult it would be. And it's just a very interesting take on it all. So having the ability to take a step back from technology, it's just different. It's difficult. It's also interesting because when I turn it on, when I'm at parties, you could see people that are using their phone. They notice I do it, and you kind of feel the shame. Like you feel like it's kind of when I was with my dad younger, I guess, or my grandpa Joe, you would have people that would say, hey, quit reading your phone. Like, I don't read a newspaper while I'm in front of you. And it's that shame. Like, it's not saying like, hey, why don't you be present because we're having fun? It's just, it's interesting. Yeah. So it's definitely a different voyage, which is also interesting because I think it's interesting about all this stuff too. So
that app is on the Android store.
It's on alpha, going to beta soon. So we're hoping it'll be in beta. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so all right, we jumped ahead. I figured we'd get into the present mode app just because that is something that is important for this time. But before we got there, I want to talk about Landi Industries and what you guys do. Because I honestly, when people go, what's your husband's company? I go, will they do anything you want to build?
That is true.
What do you want to make? They'll do it.
That is 100% true. So we do a couple different things. So Landi Industries just recently partnered up with House of Giants. And so we're kind of working through that partnership and how that's going to structure out. But what we originally started doing is turnkey,
another engineering firm?
Another development. So essentially where we started out was doing engineering on several different levels. But the inefficiencies that come with engineering is that typically when you go to a company to do a product, so a light, this microphone, you have to work with 3 or 4 different companies, if not more. You get a lot of finger pointing, a lot of blaming and that stuff. So originally when I started the company, the whole idea was to eliminate that, to become a lot quicker, because with less people becomes efficiency, price reductions, yada, yada. Yeah. What we found is it actually goes a lot farther than that. so with our team, by having it all done in-house, you now have people like Craig, my EE, that are able to see Ben, my fabricator, assemble what he's done. And they could see problems, and it allows for self-improvement a lot quicker. So now that you're responsible for what's occurring, you could see things occurring a lot faster. Not to use the word twice there, but I think it's definitely helped us overall as a company. So Ben, Chancey, Nate, now all of us have definitely seen these products come to life and adapt, and that's kind of, and it's led us to where it is now, where we're experiencing pretty good market demand, I guess I would say, around Landi Industries and the growth. I think with COVID, it kind of changes things.
Well, and it does for everybody, and that's something that I as you know, why I kind of started this is because I want to have those kind of conversations about how people are adjusting and adapting. You've been staying pretty busy though through this. I mean, it's definitely been a wild adjustment, but for the most part, you've been staying pretty busy.
Yeah, I think it's a toss up. I think what I was actually thinking about this today. It's kind of the Henry Ford effect, I guess I would be afraid of. So back in the 20s, Henry Ford didn't experience the same, was it the 40s? Whatever the hell the depression was.
20s.
One of the many.
The 20s.
One of the many depressions outside of general life depression.
Mine just happens in winter.
You're special.
Just everyone.
Yeah, all the day, every day. Cloud comes over, depression. Yeah, that vitamin D drains fast. Too much calcium intake. That's for all you nutritionists. So what I would say is, with the Henry Ford effect, what ended up happening was going into the depression. Henry Ford didn't experience it, and so what ended up happening was he went in heavy. So he started vastly expanding his things. He gave bonuses. He's like, look how great we are. Like, the depression will never hit us. It hit them hard. And then they were expanding their company, and then they had to just start shutting down, which left huge resentment in the Michigan area because you had all these people flocking for jobs that nobody else was applying. And I think that applies for anything. Like, if we look at the 08 recession, or now with COVID coming in, and as much people don't want to see it, like, soaring unemployment, it's because people are trying to conserve. And I think we've been lucky enough to have enough work to hopefully glide over this. We'll see. As always, you never know what the future holds, and I tend to not be the most optimistic person, my employees say. But I mean, you're not necessarily optimistic if you run a company. You hope for the best, plan for the worst. But I think that's a big thing. But what we've been seeing is a lot of our manufacturing partners and a lot of people closing shop up because of the social distancing. And even the companies that are forcing to work remotely now, I think it's very difficult, because companies that otherwise, even ours, I would say, Craig and Ben and Chancey, we're used to seeing each other pretty regularly. Chancey comes down and visits the guys all the time. Nate's used to seeing everybody in the office, and now you just don't. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to call it. You have to help. This is a totally personal note. You have to get me another monitor. This program doesn't allow me to say user comments, but we have two. One says, "Hey y'all," and then the other one says, "Hey man, Madeline," which is like Madeline.
Oh, it's Maddie, maybe, or another person.
Another Madeline. So, I think it's Maddie.
Yeah, maybe the other Facebook users, guinea pigs that Maddie owns. So.
Oh yeah, she has hundreds of them.
Hundreds, yes. Plug for adopting more, Maddie. So.
But yeah, you have to give me a second monitor so I can pull up Facebook and read that.
I'll gladly. So
you heard it here.
Yeah.
That's why I brought it now.
We have to go in the server closet at Launch House.
You're locked into
if Maddie is listening, they probably can't wait for that thing to be cleared out.
So. Okay, so you just brought up two really interesting things with that. One is that you have worked all over the world, and I mean all over the world. Like when we were dating, you were living in London, and you were just living out of a backpack, and you just were traveling all over. You've lived in Brazil and Alaska and Seattle, and just like we're in Cleveland now. We were in LA.
Yeah.
Switzerland. You did Switzerland, right? In Germany.
Sweden.
Sweden. Yeah. Sweden. I mean, you've literally. Oh, China. You've definitely been. Yeah, you've worked all over. I mean, you've literally worked and been all over. And with that, you also have managed a lot of people from all over the world. You've had, you've had employees like, I just remember back when we were dating and you would have like meetings in Switzerland about you were living in LA, but like you'd have to like get up at 3 in the morning.
Crack of dawn, yeah.
Yeah, you're like, well, it's 4 p.m. their time for me to get up at 3 a.m. our time, whatever, and do these meetings. But my point is that you have managed these large teams. Oh, you have teams now. You've got New York, Denver. Where does Maxie live?
Maxie's Argentina.
He's in Argentina.
I cannot say his city. He will agree or concur with that. So
well, that's fine. Yeah, you don't have to give up. I mean, he's in South America, and you're still managing people remotely from all over the world, all over different time zones. Right now, we are seeing a just surge of companies that are managing people remotely who have never managed anyone remotely before. So what sort of experience or advice, I guess, would you give to someone who's just starting out managing people remotely?
Communication and Zoom. Yeah. I think not to plug Zoom and Slack, but I think that those two, I was introduced with HipChat, the worst program ever. HipChat destroys your life. But we started out on HipChat. Yeah, it's Skype. So it's like,
okay.
Yeah, fucking.
I've never even heard of that.
Skype?
No, it's HipChat.
Oh, okay. I was like, that seems like a big one because we do it all the time.
I just missed it.
Yeah. So no, I think HipChat was a early version of Slack, and it was done by Atlassian. So people who manage larger companies will understand that name. It's basically the IBM of task management. Like, it's huge, cumbersome, and they came out with their own chat because they realized at a certain point that messaging on tickets or emails or just wasn't working.
Right.
And then what they ended up doing was moving into the chat market, which was HipChat, which was wherever the hell that program is now, but it's not doing too good to my understanding. So then we were introduced to Slack. Did
they hire you as their marketing person?
HipChat.
That was a solid.
I was an admin, so I could personally say yes. That company sucks. So I've dealt with them on multiple fronts for years. Sorry for anybody.
Some people are born to own their own companies.
Yeah, some people are born to deal with HipChat. I'm not that one.
Now one of them, yeah. Anyway, sorry.
No, what I was gonna say is the communication is key. It's very interesting because Chancey and I had a discussion about this the other day. Is that Chancey's worked remote for a very long time, and when you first start working remote, because
you guys first met at a different company where you both were managing him remotely.
Yep. Definitely not a drug den. I want to get rid of that.
Now I'm concerned that it was a drug den.
No. So yeah. So No. We worked at 10 Up at the time. And so we both worked there. And then Chancey was on my team for quite a while. So we worked together.
Yeah.
And
for a couple of years.
Yeah, for a couple of years before he started working for me now, which I don't know if I would say works for me, probably with me. Yeah. Which I would say a lot of the guys are. Mm-hmm. We put in a lot of sweat for this. But it's interesting because when we went COVID, you're used to still having that freedom. So when you work remote, when I worked remote, the nice thing about it is that you do your job, which you're used to, and then you're doing a lot of Zoom and Slack. And so it's going back and forth and really, making sure that you're touching base. So when I managed teams at 10 Up, what I did was I made it a point to meet with each team member once a week. So we would do a general, I don't remember what I called them, but a general meet and greet for 30 minutes or an hour.
Yeah.
I managed 15 people at the time. So we would meet every week. It's a lot of time, but as a manager, it really comes back. And then it was nice because we met, we talked, it lets you get to know people, and it's less all the other time you're going to see people all the time in meetings and businesses and that stuff. But It's not like personal. Like what you really miss when you switch to working at home is that touch, when you're in an office, which I know my guys can attest to. You're used to seeing people talking, going to the water cooling, bullshitting a little bit.
Yeah.
If you're Craig and Ben hiding from me, Nate hasn't mastered that skill yet. So keep up the good work, Nate. When you get that hiding down, you'll be solid as an employee. But so I think the thing about it is like you're used to that touch, and then when you go home, the interesting thing about it is that you have to get used to not having that. So there's a certain sense of madness where you're just in yourself. So your breaks change. You go from maybe doing one break every 4 hours to maybe one every hour, where you get up, walk around. That was what I did in Seattle. So I got up, and that's where I became a Mason. So it was me going down to my lodge, see my lodge brothers, call out to them, but going down to see them, talking to Frank a lot. And seeing what he's working on, going back, working for another couple hours, and kind of doing this interchange. So you replace what you normally would do at work at home. It's interesting because Chancey's been going stir crazy, and he's used to working remote. So he lives in the middle of nowhere, New York, but he still has his routine of like, him and Tommy going to hang out, or him going to hang out with family. Like he has his routine of doing stuff. Yeah. And so now where you're used to getting that like 15 minutes that you've built to keep your sanity, you no longer have that. It's very interesting overall. So,
yeah. Well, and like people who work remotely. I mean, you did anyways. You would work all over the place. Like I remember when we were living in LA, you would work sometimes just at the diner in front of our apartment. Yeah. Just to break away from our apartment and go there, and which now people don't have that. So yeah, I can see where even if you are a remote worker, just not the idea of not having that freedom of now I can't go those places is. Gotta be crazy.
Well, I think it's also you have a lot of people that haven't spent that time building that up and then adjusting to it. So like kind of when you started working remote for your last job, the big thing about it was struggling to balance the child between the two of us, tag teaming, and it became really key communication wise. And when I talked to like Matthew at Launch House, or when I talked to Sarit or some of the other people, Howard, who have a lot of children, right? Well, I'll use a lot of children loosely, but essentially you have kids at home. Well, everybody had. Well, I mean, they're not losing their children. Maybe they are. I don't want to speak. You run your children the way you want. Just make sure they have maps. But no, I think the thing about it is they have different amounts of children. I guess they have litters of children. I don't know. I don't know how you want to describe it. So, but
Maddie wants us to say hi to her again.
Oh, hey, Maddie.
And they also said they're cleaning out the garage this weekend. I'm not sure if that's from the guinea pigs or the launch houses.
That's probably code. So, but yes, losing some baggage. I lost some boxes out of my closet over this last COVID. No, but I think what it is a lot of people when they work at home, like you have the social distancing from people that are used to kind of engaging in. And then when you go home, you have things where you're not used to maybe your significant other running the dishwasher while you're trying to crunch numbers, or you're used to this. Like
seems like a very specific example.
let's just say like working in co-working spaces, you hear very specific examples all the time. Well, and I think it's very much like, you're a therapist sometimes. And I think everybody that works at Launch House or Bounce can agree. Yeah. Like when you work in these co-working spaces, it's your chance to escape this little hellhole of a life you've developed over your life. But no, in all seriousness, no, like this little life that you're used to, you're just not used to the intensity of it. So humans are used to moderation unless it's chocolate or Oreos. And I think, you're just not used to having that life the whole time or developing the communication, because the way that Americas are structured is different. Like when I was in Sweden, it wasn't a work-life balance. It was just, I call it do whatever the fuck you want. So in Sweden, you would work long days, but that's because you would take off noon to go have lunch with your kids, or you would work life into it. And it wasn't this separation. Yeah. Where in the States, you don't have that. So like we typically don't have take off to drop Anna off, spend a couple hours at daycare, come back home, go have lunch with her, come back, go have dinner with her. Like you don't have this.
It is
structure.
a very odd way that we do things. And I don't have as much experience in other countries as you do, but I mean, it does seem like it's like you're shamed if you spend too much time with your kid. Your work kind of shames you. If you spend too much time with your kid, wait, did I say that? I said that wrong. Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean.
Shamed.
Like, either
we're
way,
back to depression.
Yeah, it's you feel a lot of guilt on either ways because the work-life balance system is like not really balanced at all. It's like, you know, concrete.
Yeah, and what I will say is with COVID, it's definitely brought a lot out. I tell my guys to tell all my guys that life should come before work. Like, I don't want you choosing between a major surgery and working 9 to 5. You, whether that's a kid, family, avoiding the cops, whatever that is, like you really should focus on that. And then work should come secondary. And hey, but that's the thing. And I think it's interesting with COVID because when I'm on a lot of social forums and I talk to a lot of people, and what I've really seen is all these people, they're like, yeah, like, look at all this stuff I'm doing at home, or look at all this thing I'm spending with my family. And it's sad because you shouldn't separate that. Like, I'm very thankful with as hard as owning your own business has been. Like, we've lived through it, the ups and downs. Chancey's, you know, been there, especially, and all my guys have given a lot. But, you know, being with that, it affords some nice luxuries with it. You know, where if I worked at a larger company, I wouldn't be able to, you know, take off some of the time. Like I was taking off every Friday to be with Anna, which was nice, you know, or, you know, if we have an emergency come up, it's something where we could juggle it because, you know, we're all in it together. It's not a faceless situation, but it's just sad overall to see that, you know, because when I've been in other countries, you just don't have that. Like in Italy, it's very much of, you just work when you want to. Like the one guy I used to work with, Nicola, used to not set alarms. So he used to just wake up whenever he did. That's when he would start work. And
was he working remotely?
Yeah, he was 100% remote. He'd work from beaches, to his girlfriend's dismay. But he would very much work remote, and it was more of experiencing life, which was interesting because when I was at 10up, the big issue that I had was, yes, I was experiencing life, but then you still had that American culture. Like, we need you to work 80 hours a week.
And what was weird was that a lot of those, that was when you were doing a lot with other countries. So you had this, like, we need you to work 80 hours a week, but also adjust completely to these other countries' styles and, you know, timelines. And
well, I think what it comes down to is that in management, it takes a lot of trust to tell somebody to go do something and then have them do it. I have a lot of trust in my guys, as much as they know I hound them all the time. Like, I know if I give them a task, they're going to do a damn good job. 99% of the time. And then that 1% is just, you ran into something where you're like, fuck, like, you know, I caught this on fire. Call out to quite a bit. Yeah, call out to Ben. Fire. Yes. So no, but I would say, you know, the majority of the time, and as a manager, I think that's something that isn't really taught. Yeah. I found even when working remote jobs, so I was homeless for, what was it, like 8 years, 7-8 years prior to doing Landi Industries. So, and actually a little bit at the beginning. And the thing is that managers found it really hard to ask you to do something and then trust that you're going to do it. So it was something where it's like, okay, I need you to do this. And then instead of saying like, hey, can you follow up with me after you're done? And then you calling me and then we talk and then we move on. A lot of it was, I need to see you doing it. I remember when I worked at Highland, my boss at the time wouldn't let me leave the desk. So I remember I was doing a lot of stuff. Yeah, in all seriousness, I was doing a lot of stuff with the development team across literally the road. And so there would be some days that I would come in, go across the road, spend all day with that development team, and then not really come to my desk. And there was a lot of like, well, what are you doing? You know, why can't you do it from your desk? And it's because it was just more effective and faster for me to be embedded with the team. And I think he struggled at the time with saying like, what is he doing? You know, like if I can't see him doing something, he must not be working. And I think that's also something big on the remote. I really love to hear some of the larger companies, because it's interesting to see all these people posting about the stuff they're doing. And the illusion is that, or what they're alluding to, not the illusion, I guess, but what they're alluding to is they're not doing as much work now that they're home. Because really, if you're completing a dresser that you wouldn't otherwise complete, the question would be, you're not driving an hour. Most people don't drive an hour to work or 30 minutes to work. So why wouldn't you already be doing that? And it would be assumed that you're less effective at your job. So it would be really interesting to see how these larger companies are doing this. Like IBM, Yahoo tried it famously, and then they literally shit canned all their remote employees after they found nobody was working. So yeah, it's quite interesting, and it'd be interesting to kind of see, the studies after this, but I don't think it'd be very truthful, but
yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what our whole world's going to look like, work-wise and family-wise, and just, as we kind of talked about, like technology-wise after this, like it's really bringing a lot out of people, and
well, yeah, it's
poking holes in our systems. It's bringing I don't know.
I don't think it's going to change that much. I think from the United States perspective, I think after this, I think companies that should have been prepared will be prepared. I think there's a famously false statement made by Winston Churchill about America that is, we don't do things until we absolutely have to do them. So we just put things off, which was kind of, I think, him describing our entrance into World War II, where we wanted to be involved, but we just didn't have the American populace didn't want to do it. Not our problem. And I think with COVID coming out, I think the big thing about it is that all of these companies should have had better communication already. Like, what makes a good manager is good communication. Most problems are bad communication. And so really what it is these companies should have had Slack. These companies should have had all this stuff in place. They didn't, So it blows my mind that people are just so lockstep with email and phone calls and stopping by people's desks when that's just an inefficient way to do things overall to get work done. But I think after this, you're still going to see those inefficiencies. This is, if we look at this compared to 07, 08, you see the same manufacturing hurdles. So these manufacturers didn't save up. A lot of companies didn't prepare for downturns. They just look at upturns and they go. And, we're seeing the same thing now. We'll see the same kind of companies on the outskirts of COVID as we did, going into 07, 08. And I think the only ones that are really going to skirt this pretty much unscathed are most software companies. I think mid-size.
Yeah, those are kind of...
Well, yeah, sorry, that's my side rant, but yeah.
No, that was good. You want to say Facebook user, because I don't have that second monitor yet. Somebody said, is there a COVID-19 baby secret here? No. That's probably my mom or your aunt.
Or somebody.
Totally do. No, there's not. But also, our daughter wouldn't tolerate that. Actually, you must say I was watching Bubble Guppies with her today, her favorite show in the entire world, and there was an episode. It was actually an UK episode, which is a little bit unsettling, because it was weird. They got different voices. They got accents, and she was thrown. Her favorite characters are speaking with an accent now. But anyways, it was like the main little bubble guppy, Molly, has a baby sister, and the whole episode was about her meeting her baby sister.
Yeah.
And Anna just goes, "No, baby." No, baby. She's very jealous.
Well, yeah,
she's very jealous.
I will give you that. I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, she's
when she has a sibling.
Yeah, because eventually we want more kids eventually for sure. But yeah, it's just so funny because right now, we have our little nephew Ronnie. Shout out to him. She's shown up on this little show podcast where everyone go before on my episode with Caitlin, my sister, Caitlin Koppelberger, and he's one. He's gonna be one next week, and I was trying to teach him how to walk, and Anna kind of shoved him aside and was like, "No, you show me how to walk." And I'm like, "Well, you know how to walk." What?
Well, so, I think it'll be interesting too, because when we go out with Anna, I think she does Anna's a quick student, I guess I should say. So she's very fast to watch people and then try to imitate them.
Yeah.
And so when she's with other kids that are older than her, I think she's very quick for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, if
to a fault, it's almost like, "Oh no, we're not ready for you to do that." You brought this up today. Their neighbor boy, a couple months ago, was going down the slide head first, and he's 5, And then she was like, okay, that's how you do it. And so then she started like going down the slide head first. And we're like, no, you're not ready for
well,
that.
I'd probably say if my father's watching, he'd probably say that's pretty much me to a fault too.
Yeah.
Is charging ahead on things when I was younger, when I wasn't quite ready. But I think that could be said about all my brothers as well.
Yeah.
Due to the amount of things that Ian shot with arrows when growing up. To our Scoutmaster's demise. But I would say, we'll see. I think the interesting thing that I will say is that being a manager kind of helps you prepare for having children in some ways. And I think having a child helps you prepare for being a better manager. And it would be interesting to hear kind of Chancey's take on this, because he had his nieces, at his house, and it teaches you to just be okay with the unexpected. So essentially, the big problem I had when I started Landi Industries was I still was off that corporate, like everything's got to be regimented, things got to be done on time. But the world's not going to stop if a code pushes maybe an hour late or you have a hiccup. Basically, it's all just kind of like having a child communicating to you, like what's going on,
Yeah.
And I think the same thing goes with Anna, is that I learned, like, look, like you could yell at an employee all you want, but it doesn't mean it's going to change what it is. And there's no real purpose to getting angry over it. Like I always quote Fault in Our Stars, where you have to feel emotion. So you always feel that anger. You always feel, when a certain employee of mine doesn't, leave the 3D printers working when he gives them to you. Anonymous.
Specific.
As we say, anonymous Ben Miller at my company. What? No, anonymous. Nobody knows, who that Ben Miller person is.
We love
but I think we do. I do. Ben cracks me up. But what I will say is that, it's the same as a child. So there's no use spilling milk or crying over spilled milk. I mean, Anna spills a lot of milk.
And she cries a lot over it.
Yep, which is hilarious. Just like the cheese the other day that she insisted had to be thrown on the floor before she ate it, because she had to show anger and then allow it.
And then be upset that the cheese was on the floor.
Yes, and then resolve it herself. But I think because I think early on I learned I just can't get anything done with Anna around, which isn't a negative thing to her, but it really should be, focusing on her, focusing on allowing that time to breathe rather than trying to structure it so much that it doesn't have it, which is very interesting that early on in my career, a lot of managers said, look, Jeremiah, if you're going to have a child, they need structure, tight structure. Everything has to be planned.
Yeah.
And what I prefer is, and what I find works, and right or wrong, we'll see when Anna's 18, is my father says, just try to not fuck up the children as bad as I fucked up you. So my father said that to me once. But what I will say is, with Anna, I find that allowing her to have that time to figure out the stairs on her own, and rather than focusing on we have to get down there to get food, allowing Anna to focus on doing that, I find has allowed her to progress a lot. Like she's now able to do the stairs quite easily, up and down without hand railings. And she's able to do some things where I don't really have any reference, but when I see her with other kids, she's able to handle some things a little bit better as a only child, as opposed to, normally when we had another child, like climbing and that stuff comes a lot faster.
Right.
But Anna's able to kind of figure this out on her own.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Good job. We're doing good. We got this.
Yeah. That's what I say every day.
We got this. Sometimes it's like, we got this. And sometimes it's like, we got it. We got it. Like motivational.
You gotta, I think as they say, you gotta embrace the suck and get through it. So,
that's right.
I think that's the best way to describe parenting.
Yeah.
So, you always come out the other side, but how you get to that other side may be not how you chose to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
let's see. I'm going to ask you a more difficult question. All right. So you've had living experiences in your past that have not been so perfect as right now, because I know this is the most perfect time in your life with me and Anna. But you had, your parents were divorced, and so you had kind of like a rough time growing up with some family members, and then you had roommates and exes and stuff that you lived with in the past that
Reese's,
haven't gone well.
multiple of those.
Reese's, yeah.
Yes, multiple of those.
Right. With people sort of being locked up in home lives that may not be ideal, like ours.
Like any relationship with Reese, continue.
Is that? I mean, do you have any sort of like insight on how to get through?
I think it's all. I think it all comes down to allowing things to breathe. I think it's the same thing. Chancey and I always joke about it. So it's very much where you have to have an out somehow. Chancey and I, had an intense relationship for, a while because, working in a company, especially pushing through some of the hard times, only having you two and kind of like really like wears on you. And then we got a third person all of a sudden, and Chancey and I were like, and then now like we're fine, but you just need that moment. So I think the big thing about it is allowing arguments and things to breathe. So rather than saying like, I'm angry with you, I'm a big proponent of nonviolent communication. Great book. But what essentially it says is voicing the things that led up to that, and then also allowing you to kind of step away and breathe. So rather than saying like, I'm angry at you, saying like, I need an hour to go do this. And then you both have an agreement to say like, look, like kind of early on when you and I would talk and you're like, look, I don't need you to solve everything. Then it was, okay, Jeremiah, I just need you to listen. I'm going to yell at you. Yeah. And then I had the same moment with you at some point where I'm like, look, like, I don't want to talk negatively about any of this. I just need a moment to let my emotions come out, and then we can move on, So.
Well, and we see this so much with Anna where it's like, I mean, she's a little human with big emotions, we always say, and she just feels stuff, and it's sometimes emotions overtake her. And, it's the same with adults too, just on a smaller scale, like, or I guess more proportionate scale, like we still have the same range of emotions, but like, it's not quite overdrown like Anna's, but like we have to feel it.
I would say yes. I would say you're correct. What I would say, and I think Chancey and I have had a lot of discussions about this. The nice thing about working remote with somebody for so long and having such intense emotions with somebody over this time period has allowed us to really like step away, think about things, and then get back and discuss. And I think one of the things is that we both feel, and a lot of people I've talked to, is that the way that our society is set up is not allow you to feel your emotion. A lot of people say I'm quite candid, but the thing about it is I should be able to say, this really makes me angry, man. Like I'm not good. I'm not okay with you doing this.
Right.
And in the way that it's felt, the way that it's built, it's kind of top down, and your manager just yells at you, and then you're expected to just absorb it, deal with the suck, and move through it, where that's not really how it should be. And I think it causes a lot of emotional issues within, humans in general. So I think a lot of people are built this way where, you're used to just taking it day after day after day. Yeah. And I don't think that's how it should be. Like when I started my company, to plug my company a little bit, it's very important for me that, if my employees don't like something, to come up and tell me. And my job is to push you to become the best person you can at my job, which means sometimes pissing you off or means telling you things you don't want to hear. Right. But in the same, I expect it back. And I think that, society doesn't allow that. And I think when a lot of people bring that home with them, I was always told that when you get a new employee, you're adopting the habits of the old employer. So essentially we're a product of our environments. Yeah. Humans aren't just born with JIRA ticket numbers or like, get blamed. Yeah. And so really what it is that it's the same thing for relationships, in my opinion. Yeah. When somebody comes into a relationship, you have all those damaged parts of you, whether your previous spouse would like push things on you that you didn't like, or not allow you to feel your opinion, or when you come into relationships, it's the same thing where you have all this stuff forced onto you. And and really when you're in the house with somebody for as long, it's really allowing that to breathe and allowing that to get out and understanding that it's okay to be human. What makes humans so great is our creativity and our emotion and our ability to feel. Like if you
and also like not only our ability to feel, but also our ability to, and I guess this is sort of what I was getting at, like this is what separates us from kids so much, is that like we have our ability to feel and we have our ability to take a step back from our emotions and be like, well, this was just an emotion. And, I can break it apart and like figure out exactly how I got to this feeling and kind of adjust and, almost like rework the triggers or whatever from there. I mean, it, depending on what the issue is or what's going on, like it can take a lot of work, I mean, sometimes years, depending on what you've gone through. But like, we have the ability to understand like, oh, why do I get angry over this thing? Well, because many, many lifetimes ago, I was doing this or what, Yeah. So we have that ability to sort of, introspection, I guess. How am I running low on battery? Are you plugged it in? I am. It must have fell out in the back. Well, that's okay. We should wrap it up.
The surge protector wasn't on.
I'm so glad I'm married to such a smart tech guy.
Anna got me that way yesterday. I was trying to figure out why my Pi-hole wasn't working. Yes, which blocks all of our ads. Shout out to Pi-hole. As much as advertisers pay me, screw you. But what I will say is, like, Anna turned off the surge protector. And I looked down. And I was like, "Oh, son of a bitch!"
There it is.
So yeah, there it was. Turned it on.
Off.
Everything worked fine. But yeah. So.
Let me think if there's anything else that I wanted to ask you. I don't know. You feeling good? You feeling happy in life?
Yeah. It's interesting. So
that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. So
yeah, like our life is interesting.
That's how I describe it. Life. I always say if life is boring, you're not doing something. So I think that's what it is. Is that I also say that where if you find yourself doing an excessive amount of hobbies, you're probably not being pushed hard enough at work, or you're not pushing yourself hard enough at work.
Or I mean, you could be getting pushed hard at work, but maybe it's not like what you're passionate about. That could also be it. I think
it's a tricky subject, and not to kind of drag this on, but I would say that my final thought on this is that you shouldn't necessarily be doing your passion. You should be doing what you're gifted at. So you should still be developing it. Like a project manager isn't necessarily good at timelines, which it may be.
Yeah.
But a project manager is 9 times out of 10 good at communication or good at handling conflict or resolution, because that's why you're getting hired. And so really what it should be is that you should be developing your gift. And I also find 9 times out of 10 that if you're doing a lot of things at home that you talk about, and it's not so much about, like Craig comes up to me every once in a while and he's like, I got this brilliant idea. And it's because he's constantly thinking about ideas or driving it based on what we're doing at work, based on what he's doing at home.
Yeah.
And I see the same thing with a lot of my guys. And it's like, how do you, do this self-improvement? And it shouldn't necessarily be like, I find this a lot with larger companies where you go do your 9 to 5 and you go home and that's when life begins. You're doing your passion and you're focusing on your gift there and not at work. But that's also, my opinion about the U.S. System for work. So
yeah. Well, Nonviolent Communication. That's a great book. That you brought up before, and I just wanted to say that one more time because it was a really interesting book. It was how we adjusted from, I mean, you taught me it, but like how we adjusted from saying like, you made me feel this to, I feel this. And that's saved us with so many fights. Just because it takes away blame from someone, because again, like we are able to dissect like how we're actually feeling and like what's sort of causing those emotions. And, it's the Eleanor Roosevelt, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. It's like the same, like no one can make you feel mad without your consent either. And it's figuring that out. That made sense.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing about the structure about that is it provides you a safe way for two people to discuss things
Yes.
as well. So what I would say is it's not only about sharing your emotions, but it's about working through it. Yeah. I think that's what I tell my guys a lot is like, hey, I'm working through this. So this is how I feel.
Yeah.
And then normally people deem it as an excuse. Well, I did this because of that. And it's that other individual working through it. And I think
it's not an excuse. It's actually just like you try to work through what the steps were. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think it gives a very good framework on that.
So. I think that's just a great book for anyone, especially right now while communication is so different and unusual this time. Like I think it's a really good book for people to look into, especially if you have time to read right now.
Yep, read it before you die. There you go.
Oh God.
Or the 2020 election.
Whichever one.
Who knows? Who knows where the hell we're going? So.
You are a bright, shiny little ray of sun.
In your supernova.
Now we're just doing, what is that, Goo Goo Doll lyrics or
what?
Oasis lyrics? Who did the song Supernova? I don't
Definitely
know.
Not either of those. Okay. But they did, no, it was it was Supermassive Black Hole. Which was Supermassive Black Hole.
Is that the name of the band?
No. That was the huge, like, it was indie and it was like very grungy with the music over top of it. Huge rock band song. I remember going over a lot of people's houses and they just getting high as fuck and playing the hell out of that song, along with Black Hole Sun. That's a very popular, as I found out, rock band.
Oh, the game Rock Band. I remember that.
Yeah, you remember that? Yeah, I guess it did kind of go to the wayside. Nobody really does anymore. So
I should have brought this up before, but we went to high school together. We broke up. We got back together. We broke up. We got back together. We broke up. Got back together. It spanned many decades, and then eventually we got married. Mm-hmm. I meant to start out with that and sort of explain our backstory. This has been a very backwards interview, but I've had fun.
Yeah. I'm glad. I guess we're doing something right. So, growing and having fun. So,
Thank you for joining me today.
No problem.
I'll see you in the living room.
Yeah, I'll see you.
All right, and thank you all who watched. We can still see your shadow.
Just kill the fade. Kill the fade.
All right, we're out. We're out.